Congratulations, America. You're number one in debt globally as you passed $33 trillion. That's not good. It's not good at all. And that's super messed up, actually, and totally systemically dangerous for not just the United States, but the entire global economy. The U.S. debt problem is becoming so big and so dangerous that I'm not sure there's a way out. And that's problematic for everybody. So I want to talk with you about that in this video, what the problem is, how bad it is, and what, if any, solutions are there. And I think that the solutions that may be coming could actually be pretty damn scary, and I really don't like it. So we're going to have to talk about that. Of course, if you do enjoy this kind of content, make sure to whack on that thumbs up button to let me know you do like these kind of videos. And obviously, if you're not subscribed yet, subscribe to the channel so that the YouTube algorithm will feed you more of this kind of stuff in the future. Let's get it. So, 33 trillion bucks, guys. What are you doing? What are you doing, America? What is this? How can you have $33 trillion in debt, man? Of course, they have $1.6 trillion budget deficit right now. Only getting worse as more money goes to, I don't even know. Where do you do it? It's a hard number to comprehend. You realize, like, how big $33 trillion is? It's an unpayable amount of money. And it's getting worse. There's no end in sight to the increases. This is the problem. If it was like $33 trillion today and said, okay, well, here's the comprehensive plan of how we're going to pay that down over the next 10 or 15 years. Okay, interesting, fine. That's something we can work with. But no one's even having the vaguest conversations about paying off the debt, dude. No one's talking about that. The only conversations are around adding more debt. Zero fiscal responsibility in Washington, D.C. right now, and everyone's going to have to pay the piper at some point. When that comes remains to be seen. Currently, the estimates are that we could see anywhere from 45 trillion. I've seen the 50 trillion number coming around. This particular information right here is coming from Statista, but they are looking at 45 trillion by 2030. Some estimates put that as high as 50. But even on these more conservative numbers, that's 52 trillion by 2033, just 10 short years from now. That's an increase of $20 trillion in 10 years. $2 trillion a year being added to the U.S. debt. Incredible amounts of money here. Based on the current projections, 20 cents of every dollar of revenue in the USA will go to paying the debt by 2033. And again, this is based off of the more conservative estimates. It's crazy stuff. It's crazy. And of course, the Americans want to spend money on other things. They don't just want to service their debt. They want to also send their kids to school and have roads and these sorts of things and have the biggest military on the planet and all this kind of stuff. Well, you can't have it all. And that debt problem is not going away, and 20 cents on every dollar of revenue in the USA going to pay the interest on the debt, not the principal. We're not paying down the principal. Oh, no. We're just talking about the interest payments. Just disappears. This is how you impoverish a nation right here. This is evil. Ottavio here pointing out what's even more concerning than the federal debt surpassing 33 trillion for the first time in history is the fact that it has been growing at an annualized rate of 18.5% since June, when they lifted, of course, the debt ceiling. Unprecedented times that we're living in here for U.S. markets. The lack of sanity, the lack of responsibility, the complete carelessness and brazenness of American politicians to keep racking up this debt as if it just doesn't matter, but it does matter. $33 trillion in debt is destructive to the next 5 generations of Americans who are not going to have anything because all their money is going to go to servicing the debt. And we're only talking about 2030. I mean, my kids are just going to be barely teenagers by that point. Not that I live in the USA, but as an idea, like, it's not that far away, and that's 50 trillion. So what about by the time, like, my kids or your kids, if you have little kids, are grown up and are actually active, productive adults in society? $75 trillion in debt? Of course, the debt to GDP ratio, if that were allowed to happen, would be like 300%, which would be unprecedented and deeply dangerous. Deeply dangerous. So the question has to become, well, what do you do? How do you pay off $33 trillion? Well, I want to try and answer, or at least speculate a bit about that question. Before we do, just a quick note, if you are an investor and you're in the cryptocurrency space, then you've got to get signed up to the Wealth Mastery newsletter. It is the best damn newsletter in the cryptocurrency industry. Every single issue is jam-packed full of value. Look, I know how it is. I know how life is. It's busy. You got your wife, you got your dog, you got your kids, you try to take care of yourself a little bit, working out, whatever it might be. Like, where do I find time to keep up with investing? Well, we got you covered. That's what we made the newsletter for. Our team spends about 40 hours a week making this newsletter. We send it 3 times a week to your inbox. Latest on crypto news, altcoin alpha, airdrop alpha, DeFi alpha, technical analysis, all that kind of stuff. We got you covered. 75,000 people a week are reading this newsletter. You can join them by clicking on the link in the description. So here's some common sense solutions that I don't think are particularly effective or great, but let's talk about them. One would be to raise the retirement age so that the government gets more money out of you for longer. Look, people are living longer. You don't want to pay them Social Security. You want to keep them in the workplace for as long as possible. Preferably, you should just die at work. That would work out really well for the government, right? Just don't retire. Just die at work. It's fine. So they're talking about raising the retirement age possibly to 70. That's interesting. Don't know, of course, if they're actually going to be brave enough to do that. But that's one way you could potentially mitigate to some tiny amount, but you're not going to find $1.6 trillion a year to close the budget deficit by doing that. But it could help in some tiny way to kick the can down the road just a little bit longer. What about raising more taxes? If only the government can take some more money from your pockets and put it into their pockets, then they're going to be okay. I mean, the U.S. government makes plenty of money. It's just they spend it terribly. And if they, for example, did a 5% national sales tax, well, again, that could potentially help a little bit, at least, to, fix the problem. But then it also probably cause a slowdown in spending because people are going to be less likely to buy certain things because they know it's going to cost more. It's going to take more out of their pockets, et cetera, et cetera. You've got to remember, this is the thing. With this $33 trillion in debt, to a large extent, you have not been, if you were in the United States, to a large extent, you've not really benefited from this. We've seen $10 trillion of that debt probably just in the Iraq and Afghanistan war, for example. Was that any great benefit to you? No, but you got to pay for it. Whether it be via taxes or working until the day you die, you're on the hook for it. You didn't really have any say in that happening, but you're on the hook for it. Now, maybe they just need to revamp the tax code. Find some other ways to take your money. Right? They're the ones running up the credit card bill, and they don't have to pay it. They don't care. They're going to be okay. Your average politician's a multimillionaire. They don't care about you. And so, of course, they can put more taxes on you, but a few extra % tax is also not going to solve the problem. We're talking about $33 trillion here. And $1 trillion a year right now in interest payments. Again, not paying down the principal, just the interest payments. So then we get into the scarier stuff. Capital controls. Now, the extent to which they can use capital controls as a way to pay off the debt becomes very interesting. We shall see if this is the route that they choose, and this could come in part with CBDCs, central bank digital currencies, more on that in a moment. But maybe we see a situation where, they are going to actually bring in capital controls in the United States. And you think, well, that sounds crazy. I mean, to an extent, there already is capital controls. Like, go try to send a bank transfer to Iran, and you'll realize that capital controls already exist. It's just that they largely exist against geopolitical competitors and stuff like this. Although there are more arbitrary capital controls, certainly, when it comes to the United States. And basically every country has some kind of capital controls. I'm not singling out the U.S. when it comes to capital controls, but they could bring in a lot more draconian capital controls, basically forcing people to keep their money in banks or in the markets or whatever it might be that could potentially help them take more of your money once again. This is all what it comes back to. Finding ways to make sure they get your money in their pockets with the promise of paying off the debt that you didn't sign up for, by the way, but with the promise of paying off that debt, but they're probably not going to pay off the debt. They'll probably just spend it on some more dumb crap and then add more to the debt. That's what they've been doing. Now, what if we see a default in the USA? What if somebody comes in, they get elected, and they say, you know what? We're just not going to pay it. We're not going to pay the $33 trillion. Everyone can just get screwed. We're not paying. We're America. We're not going to pay. Well, what would that mean for the global economy if the USA decided that they're just not going to pay their debts? Armageddon. Financial Armageddon globally. It would be really, really bad. In case you didn't know, the United States is a pretty important economy. 52 to 54% of global equity markets value in the USA. America is invested everywhere, and everyone invests in America. Loads of international banks have U.S. treasuries and U.S. dollars, which of course would tank on a U.S. default. It would be chaos and mayhem of a level that's hard to comprehend. And the scary thing about a U.S. default is that this is one of the more likely options, if you ask me. These little tweaks, we're going to raise the retirement age and 5% national sales tax, that doesn't fix the problem. How do you pay back $50 trillion? How do you do it? It's not by implementing a tiny little tax or making people work 5 years more at Walmart greeters until they fall dead in the shopping cart. That's not going to fix the problem. A default would fix the problem in the worst possible way, and the repercussions of that could cause a new global Great Depression. Ain't pretty. I don't like thinking about it. But it's a possibility. It's definitely a possibility. Again, if you think there's some kind of common sense, logical way that all this stuff gets paid off, you let me know, because I'm not seeing it. And a default, I think, is an actual option on the table. And then there's the money printer. Guys, the sad reality is that they may just try to debase their way out of it, which is problematic. Because, again, guess who gets screwed when they debase the currency? Take a wild guess. You get screwed. Now, if they actually try to print their way out of this mess, again, devastating impacts for the regular person here, because inflation will go absolutely insane in America. Your wages will buy almost nothing. Oh, you think that can't happen? There's a lot of countries around the world where they didn't think that could happen too. Places that were once the hot economies, Argentina or Lebanon, for example, or Turkey. Ask those people if inflationary nightmares can't happen, because they're living those right now in this very moment. And we should thank our lucky stars that we don't have to live in such a place, and that we are not facing these horrible inflationary nightmares where the central banks debase the currency so hard and so fast. But again, I'm struggling to understand, how do you pay off $33 trillion now and $50 trillion by 2030? How do you pay that off? Default, currency debasement, or some kind of magical taxes and forcing people to work forever? Seems like the less likely option to me. And then there's what it all may really be about, and this is perhaps the scariest option for me, is central bank digital currencies. Now here's my concern. The debt issue, they're never going to pay it off. They're never going to fix the debt problem, because the debt problem is exactly what they want. They want the country to be deeply in debt. They want to give you nothing and they get everything. This is all by design. It's not a mistake that the national debt's $33 trillion on the route to be $50 trillion. It's not a glitch. It's not some malfunction of the system. Everything is going exactly as designed. This is exactly what they want to happen. They knew it was going to happen. They're making it happen because they want it to happen. Because when the crisis comes, and that could be a default. Step one could be a default. Step two, central bank digital currencies, because they're going to need a crisis. They're going to need people to be desperate in order to roll out this terrifyingly Orwellian monetary system. You will have a social credit score, just like in China. Especially in a crisis, people will accept it. Remember, the World Economic Forum themselves, this is not me making this up, they wrote about it on their own website. They said that the Mexican beer crisis showed wide compliance. And that was an encouraging sign for the eventual rollout of central bank digital currencies. Remember, this could be a way that not only they solve the crisis of a default, oh, the old American dollar is done, we're going to bring in the new American dollar, it's going to save everybody, and it's going to be a digital central bank digital currency. And it's going to come with all kinds of little parameters that you're going to be forced to accept because national security, it's a crisis, we're in a crisis mode, we just have to do it. Just like it was a crisis and they had to take the money off the gold standard. It was a crisis and they had to confiscate the gold back in the 30s. Crisis. And so you'll be forced to accept central bank digital currencies. And what does that mean? They're going to come with expiry dates. Don't spend your money within 6 months, you lose it. So you have to go out and buy stuff. Stimulate the economy, right? You have to go and invest it in the stock market. Pump up the Ponzi scheme some more. And gosh forbid that you should say anything negative about any of this stuff on social media because you'll be a conspiracy theorist. That'll be disinformation. And you will be removed from social media. People who talk about it will be crazy people. And your CBDC wallet will be shut down and your social credit score will be taken to zero. And if you think that what I'm saying is crazy, then let me ask you this. When they lied about the wars and they lied about the surveillance and they lied about almost everything that they've ever come out of their mouths, you really think they're not going to do this stuff with CBDCs? Of course they are.